All right. Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome here to our session for M365 security with the star of the show here. Well, we're really going to kick things off here being with Intune and really want to thank a fantastic Microsoft partner. We have OnPar here, specifically Donna Hall from OnPar, who is joining us today. They're going ahead and hosting this event. So really super excited to have everyone here with us. We're going to give everybody just a few minutes to make their way in. Realize people could be coming out of another meeting or anything, something like that. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off here, about 2 to 3 minutes. But I really appreciate everybody joining us here. We got a lot of great information, and Donna's going to provide us a lot of good insight as well as we go through today. So everybody hang tight, and we'll get rolling here in just a couple of minutes, everybody. So appreciate it. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get this party started here. So welcome once again here to our session here on M365 security with the star of the show really being Intune, where we're going to be spending probably the most of our time here talking about that and the importance of that. But I want to welcome everybody personally. My name is Tyler Wheeler. I'll be going ahead and leading today's discussion. I want to go ahead and send a big thanks here as well to OnPar for sponsoring today's event, hosting our event. Fantastic Microsoft partner. Specifically, we have Donna Hall here from OnPar. So Donna, what I wanted to do is go ahead and turn things over to you and let you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and a little bit more about your organization, OnPar.
Sure. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. As Tyler said, I'm Donna Hall, and I am with OnPar Technologies, the Director of Business Development here. And we host these webinars once a month to basically provide our existing customers and our prospects with information that you may need to better enhance your security posture within the Microsoft 365 environment. So we appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to what Tyler's going to deliver for us.
Awesome, Donna. Well, thanks so much for being here. Always a pleasure doing these events with you. Super excited to have you, as well as everybody else. Really appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to spend it here with us for this informative, about hour-long session that we have for everyone. So what I want to do is kind of move into talking about a few things in regards to security and thinking about, security holistically and what security means here specifically within your M365 tenants to your organization, because security is more important than ever. Every single day, the security and keeping your organization secure becomes, should become more of a priority to you. Because what Microsoft 365 has, it's a comprehensive suite of tools that can be used to protect organizations from a variety of threats. And we're going to talk about those different services and tools that you can go ahead and utilize and help you manage your identity, secure your devices, as well as safeguard your data. And really, by the end of this journey that we're going to be talking about here today, users will be equipped, your users, as well as yourself, will be equipped with the knowledge and skills that are needed to protect your organization at every level. And when we talk about levels, what we're going to be doing is taking a journey today. I want everybody to kind of put themselves in the seat as you are a user and you sit down at your machine. And, how do I go ahead and access my tenant within my organization? And what's keeping me safe while I do that? What's keeping every user safe, as well as your devices safe, as well as your identity safe, and as well as the data within your organization as well. And that leads us here into the idea of Microsoft Security Framework, and it's built on these 4 pillars. This is something that all of Microsoft's in 365 all of their security services are built to go ahead and make sure that they are utilizing and protecting essentially your organization within these 4 pillars. And the main pillars are identity access management, information protection, security management, and threat protection. And these areas ensure that M365 offers full protection for your devices, identities, as well as your data, as I mentioned. So identity and access management, meaning that only the right people can access the right resources at the right time. When I talk about information protection today, it defends against unauthorized access to sensitive data, such as, IP, financial data, customer information, anything that really, staying above board, being compliant is what we want to go ahead and specify there. When talking about security management, we're talking about this being what keeps an eye on and detects potential threats. It's responding as well to those threats and fixing issues that are created by those threats as needed. And finally, threat protection. So that's guarding against cyber threats such as malware, viruses, and other malicious activities. Though all of these pillars together and all of these tools that we're going to be talking about today, they compile what is your comprehensive approach to securing your Microsoft 365 tenant as well as the services that you utilize, both from external threats, cyber threats, whatever it may be, but also from within your organization as well. We'll be talking about that a little bit more as I go on here today. But what we want to do is go ahead and start our journey here as a user sitting down at their machine, sitting down at their laptop, they're on their phone, they're, inside of your maybe office at a desktop, whatever it may be. And we want to think about first and foremost is what is protecting the machine that this user is going to go ahead and utilize to perform their daily duties, perform their work, converse, use Teams, whatever it may be. And it all starts here with really the star of the show being, our referencing our identity and access management pillar, and that is Microsoft Intune. And what Microsoft Intune is, it's a cloud-based service that's a part of Microsoft's Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, and it helps organizations manage and secure their mobile devices as well as things like applications. So the functionalities here that are key to Intune are first off device management. So it allows your IT admins to manage and secure various devices, including smartphones, tablets, computers, what I mentioned before, whether they are company owned or actually whether they are personal as well. And then that is key too, because we want to make sure that everything that can be monitored, that a user is going to access your information, your tenant within your organization is monitored. We also have application management with Intune helps in managing and deploying applications across your devices. So this could be installing, update, and configuring apps that are, maybe are Microsoft apps that your organization requires you to utilize, as well as it can even go as far as third-party applications as well. So ensuring that only compliant applications are used on these devices. Security management is another pillar, another functionality here that I wanted to talk about because it offers tools to enforce security policies, such as decrypting devices, setting up the device encryption for them, requiring strong passwords on these devices as well. Also remotely wiping data if a device is lost or stolen. You can implement company policies that ensure devices and applications meet company standards and regulatory requirements. And it's all integrated here with Azure, Microsoft Entra. I almost went back and said Azure Active Directory, which is what is formerly known as, but it integrates here with Entra ID, enabling features like conditional access to ensure that only compliant devices and users can access specific resources or use applications. And ultimately, it's really to provide a streamlined experience for your users. So, they don't have to worry about, am I utilizing the wrong thing on my device? Is this device compliant or anything like that? Your IT admins are taking care of that because everything that starts with, accessing data and information starts with the device. We're talking about software, we're talking about the cloud, but hardware is how we actually access the software. So we need to be able to go ahead and specify, which devices are can be utilized, I should say, in an organization. We don't, want to go ahead and open it up for anyone to, use any device in order to access the data in our organization. And this is where I want to bring in Donna, because um, Donna, we talked about, with our organizations, and we had this discussion before, to where we have users coming in and actually we I should say, the next topic I want to talk about more about identity, but we're seeing that, that protecting identities with, we'll get to that in a minute, is not quite enough. We actually need to go a step further with that. But so MFA these days, we always used to stress that isn't quite enough. So how can, Intune further prevent bad actors?
Most definitely, Intune can help with this, and the thing that we're seeing, and most recently, is token hijacking. And if you don't know what that is, or if that's a new term to you, we have a little short snippet video. It's about a minute and a half on our YouTube channel, which I'll drop here in the chat in just a minute, for you guys to watch. But what is happening is those MFA tokens are being hijacked when a bad actor has gotten somehow let into the system, typically by an end user via email by clicking on a link. And so the person thinks they're multi-factoring in, and they are, but they are, and when they are doing that, that token is being hijacked because this person has been allowed into the system. And then they're taking those credentials and going to another um, device and using the multi-factor to get in. So what that is the new threat that we're seeing out there. And if you have your devices enrolled in Intune and only allow those devices to access your data, then even if there is an MFA token hijack, that would be, disallowed because they're coming in from a device that is not approved through Intune. So that's just another MFA. 6 months ago, 12 months ago, everybody thought that was the be all end all, and everybody was really excited about MFA, and that's gonna help. But and it helps. You must have that. Now it's a baseline. It's not the threshold for, oh my gosh, we're protected. It's the baseline.
Yeah, and that's and like you were saying there, MFA was something that we preached for so long, within organizations. We would see organizations that had like global admins who didn't have MFA enabled and things like that. We'll talk more about that as we go on. But learning more about this token hijacking, you have to having to think here that, we have to take it to the hardware level as far as our security is concerned, where when we thought about the cloud and everything like that, we thought everything was really identity based. And, we weren't so much worried about the hardware itself. So, replicating encryption on disks and things like that is something that is going to be a lot harder for a bad actor really to actually, utilize itself. A lot of these or not organizations, these groups of people who, try to steal information and things like that. Not always super sophisticated. And once certain things come out, they're able to go ahead and utilize them, fairly easily. So this is something though that you can easily do within your organization in order to prevent that. And Microsoft's really good about always being kind of that step ahead of everyone. Microsoft itself is actually the second most hacked organization in the world, first being the US government. So Microsoft itself invests, billions, or I shouldn't say at least $1 billion every year into all of their security products. And Intune itself is, makes up that suite of the products that they do go ahead and invest in. So it's really important for organizations to realize that, all the things that you've learned, as we were talking about 6, 12 months ago, are important. Obviously, we want to keep enforcing those, but this is where it all starts. This is where that journey begins. Thinking about that user sitting down to this machine and having to log in. Before, where we didn't focus so much on the machine being safe. Now we need to take it to that level of the actual machine, actually the actual device being safe as well for it. And as well with that, with Intune itself, you get all of those other features that I mentioned before, as far as application management, really making it easy as well for your users to ensure that they are utilizing the right things, that they are safe when they are logging in as well. And it's all integrated here into Entra ID as far as things like conditional access for these machines, certain areas as well that, as far as signing in from different IP addresses, pinging different towers and things like that, only specifying certain regions in the world to where logins can be occurring as well. You can implement that here with the device protection, for example. So it really is the first and foremost the what you need to start with as far as within your organization to going ahead and making sure that you are secure. But Microsoft security is built on layers, as we saw here, with those pillars in mind. So as we move in and go through these layers, what I want to now go ahead and move into is the idea of identity. And this is where we think about, okay, so our device itself, my laptop's like right here. I'm kind of making my hands look like I'm typing on it or things like that, something like that. But our, device is secure. So our user is able to go ahead here and log in with a password that we can, in our organization, specify that is strong enough. You can also require biometrics as well, if utilizing Windows Hello. For example, if it's a Windows machine or any kind of machine that it enforces biometric login, and you can enforce that. The machine is protected. The user is logged in here with strong credentials, whatever it may be. And now we need to think about they're on their machine, and now they need to go ahead and log into, let's say, they're on an Excel spreadsheet, for example. So they need to be able to log into their log into your tenant with their credentials. And this is where Entra ID comes in. And this is that second layer that we're thinking about in security. And it's a strong layer with its multi-factor MFA, multi-factor authentication feature. So it allows also for you to manage guest users and external partners as well, which is super important through business to business, business to consumer options, allowing them to sign up and sign in and manage their profile seamlessly. Conditional access is also a feature here as far as with Microsoft Entra ID. So it controls how a user accesses their accounts, considering factors like MFA, device type, taking Intune into account, IP location, as I was mentioning before, or whether or not they belong to certain groups within your Entra ID directory. It implements identity governance, which is specifically designed to help your organizations manage access across services as well as your applications. So, these are, it answers important questions, as I should say, like, which users should have access to which resource? And what are those users actually doing with that access? Are there organizational controls in place for managing access? Can auditors verify that the controls are working effectively? And with Entra ID, you can manage the identity lifecycle of your employees, any kind of business partners, vendors, whatever it is. You can oversee the access lifecycle of those users, as well as secure privilege access for your administration. And really, being the most important thing here, where it kind of starts when you're logging in, that user logging into your credentials, is with multi-factor authentication and how important that is, as we just mentioned before. But Donna, I want to go ahead and turn it over to you, and maybe you have some examples or a good way to kind of talk about this, of how you approach explaining the importance of MFA to organizations, and especially, and this is where I like to focus on it, for those who have high level of access, thinking about your admins, your owners of subscriptions, for example, possibly in Azure for outside of M365. But how important that is, that the level of access that you do have, how it makes MFA even more important.
Yeah, MFA is like we stated before. It's so important. It's the first level of after your password and putting MFA in place. And we believe in it so much here at OnPar. And believe it or not, there's companies out there that do not want to implement MFA. And we believe in it so much that if you don't want to do it, that's your choice. It's your environment. We don't own your environment. You do. but if you're going to do business with us and you don't want to do it, we make you sign a waiver that releases us from any responsibility, or basically just says, hey, we told you about this, because it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's just a matter of when. And if your organization hasn't been affected by anything, then knock on wood, because that's about all you can do at this point, is just put the things in place and put the training in place. But if you don't want multi-factor, that's the first thing we say. Okay, and we're talking to executives. Hey, you don't want this. We need your CEO to sign off on this, and that typically is like a big red flag for them. And they'll say, well, maybe we should have this. Yeah, you really should. And then the next phase is just emphasizing the security and the business impact, that you want to mitigate your risk as much as you possibly can, because when an incident does happen, you can be held liable for so many things these days, that if you don't have these things in place, if you have cybersecurity insurance, that's one of the very basic questions they ask you, and they're not going to pay. They're not going to pay out. And also with the liabilities, if you show that you've done everything in your power to protect yourself, and you felt like in good faith you had protected yourself, then you're not going to be held as liable as you would if you didn't have any of these things in place. So if you kind of talk about it through how it can affect their business, how people have gone out of business because of a bad actor getting in due to lack of multi-factor, and you really talk about it in terms of financial, it typically hits home pretty hard.
Yeah, just go for the wallet is what I say. That really
Right.
really speaks to people. And it's and the way I like to think of it here is like the importance of it and why, I've kind of talked about the features that it has here with Entra. I want to kind of paint a little picture for you with for everybody, and just kind of think of it this way too. And this is a great way to talk when you think about it, how of a much of an effect that it can have. So think about whoever actually has your identity. It's one thing to go ahead and set up things like MFA to ensure people can't actually take your identity. But also with this, that's kind of the star and the big thing we focus on. But I do want everybody to really focus on the idea of other things as well that it comes to Entra, as far as, what roles are you assigned to what specific things? Because your role dictates the control that you have over the resources, the data within your organization, which is very, very, very important. So the higher role that you have, the more control you have. That means that if that identity is compromised, that's more access that a bad actor has to the data within your organization. That's why it's also important to very much be very specific about how you delegate access inside of your organization. Think about this. If as far as I have different departments, for example, and this kind of goes into this idea of identity protection. Not all of it is done specifically within Entra. It can be, but also in the levels here of the different services that you utilize between SharePoint, Teams, whatever it may be. But Entra is that top layer of it. You have to think about, let's say you have a marketing department and you have an accounting department. We'll just, be very, very simple with this. The marketing department might have more access to, things just like, promotional materials and things like that. Documents that were created, presentations that were created for the organization and digital campaigns that they're running. And then the accounting department will have access possibly to customer financial information. Now, within that organization, it's very important to go ahead and specify the difference between those two types of people in the organization. Your marketing person doesn't need to have the same level of access to the resources and documents that your accounting employee has access to, and vice versa. So it's good to go ahead and create that separation between these different groups and make sure that, people are only accessing the things that they absolutely need. Because let's say you have a data breach or a breach within your marketing department. That happens. Okay. It's not as bad as if Possibly it was in accounting or someone else. So making sure that people have the right access to perform their jobs is very important, but also making sure that they don't have access to the things they don't need to support their jobs. And that's all done through this identity access and management. And there's multiple layers of it that can be that are inherited essentially from the top at Enter ID. But within and those are things you can talk more about as far as with Donna when they take a look at they have a great offer for you as far as a security assessment that will go into more of those specifics within your organization. But that's one example I really like to kind of put out there for everybody to consider. And this is the tool and the services, and Microsoft 365 Security has that available to you. All right. So now what I want to do is go ahead before we move into our third pillar that we're talking about and furthering our journey as far as our user has sat down at the machine that is monitored by Intune. They went ahead and logged into your tenant as far as with the credentials that they have, they've been assigned, and they've utilized MFA, however they have it, through the Authenticator app is a really good option. It's the one I prefer. Just makes it easy. Most people always have their phone on them. And then they're inside the tenant. Now, before we move on to how those pillars impact our user today, I want to go ahead and throw a few questions here, 2 questions out to everyone who has joined us. So we want to go ahead and know, just I'm going to throw some polls. You're going to see them pop up here in a second when I click launch. First one being, does your organization utilize Microsoft Intune? These are pretty basic yes or no kind of things. And, if you don't know, that's totally fine as well. We're just trying to get a gauge here as far as, of these services, what customers are actually utilizing, kind of see where you are on that security journey. I think it's really important just to kind of get a gauge here and understand where everyone is. So we see we got some yes, no, okay. That's cool. Really appreciate everybody filling these out for us, which is perfect. Awesome. All right. And I'm going to go one more back to back, just with the 2 services that we just discussed. So we're going to see here, do you know, does your organization require MFA for all users? I always say no, but we should. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. As Donna said, some organizations do not want to, and it's not a good idea. Not that hard to implement. It's really not that much of a hassle, to be honest. So. I remember when, password requirements became harder and we all kind of like shook our heads at it like, oh, I gotta add a special character to this password. And now it's something we don't even think about. And now it's something that most people probably in their passwords have a character of some sort. It's not just, letters, incorporating numbers, special characters, because they see like, oh, I don't want my password to get compromised, you know. Right. So now what we want to do here as far as our pillars are concerned is we want to move into more threat detection. Thinking about now our user is signed in on the machine, they've logged in with their credentials, and now that they're inside of their tenant, what is protecting them from, things that could make their way into their tenant and things that are to your organization's tenant and things they could come in contact with. And that's where Microsoft Defender comes in. And Microsoft Defender specifically, there's a couple more Defender services, and I'll highlight them a little bit in just in the next slide. But I want to focus first on Microsoft Defender specifically for Office 365. And it helps organizations secure their enterprise. And it offers features to prevent, detect, investigate, and address threats to email as well as your other Office 365 resources. So first off, it provides anti-malware and anti-spam protection. So in M365, email messages are actually automatically protected against malware by the Exchange Online Protection Service. So some of the major types of malware include viruses that infect other programs, spyware to gather personal information as well, and ransomware that encrypts your data and could, and then demands payment on it to unencrypt it. The Exchange Online Protection also offers multiple layers of protection designed to catch all known malware on Windows, Linux, as well as Mac systems. So the some of the key anti-malware features that I want to focus on are first, layered defenses, because anti-malware scans help protect against both known and unknown threats as well. And Microsoft anti-malware includes detection that provides early stage protecting during any kind of malware outbreak that may be occurring. It also, excuse me, offers real-time threat response. So during some outbreaks, the anti-malware team can write policy rules to detect threats even before a definition is available. So, these rules are generally updated globally about every 2 hours, just to give you a sense of, how quick and how in real time that they really are. There's fast anti-malware definition deployment as well. So a team can receive and integrate malware definitions and patches before they're publicly released. So to reduce junk email, for example, our Exchange Online protection includes spam protection that uses properties filtering technologies to separate junk from legitimate email. The spam filter learns from known threats and user feedback from Outlook as a whole, as well as ongoing feedback from admins as well as users. So it'll classify messages such as, spam or it's a phishing message. I don't know if any of Outlook users have seen that actually come through. And things like that. I'll get those and say this actually looks like spam. It'll actually go ahead and protect your users from those threats through all of the time and all of the investment that Microsoft has made into Defender as a product. It also provides tenant allow block lists to manage domains, email address, spoofed senders, files, as well as URLs. Safe attachments is another feature that offers additional protection in email and files for organizations with Defender for Office 365. So you may have seen here within your Outlook that you'll see that, it's actually Defender is scanning the document before that you actually receive it in attachment. So it scans files in SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams utilizing common virus detection engine, and files are opened in a virtual environment to observe behavior, known as any kind of behavior that it needs to do. Sorry, I've just lost for words there. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Files that are opened in any kind of virtual environments and observing their behavior to donate. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm like a loss for words. Sorry, John. Sorry, everybody. To specify what it is, I guess is the word I'm saying. The other word was lost in my head. So it's helping, detect and block malicious files. You ever have that, like the words on the tip of your tongue, and it's, I'm so sorry about that. I just
No,
totally
it's
had a little
okay.
brain
No
fart there.
problem.
So what really this is for is to ensure, and all of these features that I just mentioned are to ensure that you have a robust, defense against various types of malware, phishing threats, and things like that, helping you to keep your organization secure. Within Defender as well, you can actually run simulated phishing attacks to actually test your organization, to make sure the people within your organization to make sure that they know what phishing looks like, and things like, you've been offered a $100 Amazon gift card, never, don't click on those. Those are some of the oldest in the books there. But, we noticed, and after highlighting that with the Defender for Office 365, there's more that takes up the Defender suite, is what I'm trying to say, because your organizations and all organizations become more sophisticated and more complex, and then it needs to span over the reach that their organization is obtaining. So we want to Microsoft provides several tools that prevents against them. Defender for Endpoint provides preventative protection and post-breach detections for your devices. For example, there's Defender for Identity that detects advanced threats and compromising identity utilizing on-prem directory signals. We have Defender for Cloud Apps that will offer visibility and threat protection for your cloud applications, as well as Sentinel, which is probably the biggest of these here. It is a cloud native, system information and events management that is across your organization, whether it is on-prem or on the cloud. You can implement it to your on-prem servers and things like that you're running possibly. And it gives you real-time protection and things like that. Kind of a composite of all of the Defender features, but into Sentinel, which is across your organization via on-prem or on the cloud. So I wanted to go ahead and specify those. So And Donna, what I wanted to bring to you here is thinking about, through this, and through what I've gotten to so far with our user's journey, logging in to the machine, the identity, and now being within the tenant and protecting them from, outside sources that can find their way in. I wanted to ask you a question here because monitoring, your organization's security posture and things like that, is a continuous process. And within Defender, you get things like secure scores as well to monitor this. It's all notated for you. But how do you help customers, utilize tools in M365 to make sure that they are, really keeping up with these security needs? Because we just talked about a bunch of tools right here all at once.
Yes. So, um, obviously starting with the secure score, a lot of people don't know that that's even a thing in Microsoft. So you want to make sure that you have looked at your secure score and that you know what that is. And part of what we're offering at the end of this webinar is a free assessment of the security within your Microsoft environment, and it looks at the secure score and it provides recommendations on how you can improve that secure score. It's very rare that we work with a client when we first start working with them that their secure score is where it needs to be. It's usually quite low. And so it may mean that you need to invest in a different license, that you need to add something, or you just need to implement policies. It's hard to say, what every environment is different, but it's going to make recommendations based on that. And once you have the things in place, then there are different levels that you can go to. We have some people that they will, keep an eye on that secure score once a quarter, something along those lines. We have some people that look at it once a year because they know that they feel like, things are in a good place. Now we have other clients that they have compliances that they have to meet. So one good thing is that Microsoft has built in the Compliance Center that allows you to do some of this stuff for governing purposes, whether you have to meet a NIST or a HIPAA or whatever your compliance is. There's the Compliance Center that you can step through and put other measures in place. So Microsoft's done a really good job in a short amount of time, actually, in getting the security in the products where it needs to be. And data loss prevention is one of the big things of identifying the data that you don't want to lose, or nobody wants to lose any data typically, but you have to actually know if you are, and most people don't have a clue if data is being shared outside of their organization that shouldn't be. And a lot of times they don't even have, they just don't know. So there's tools you can put in place that will alert you on certain anomalies.
Yeah, that's great. And it comes from a suite of so many different tools and different services that, making sure that, you're keeping up to date here. And I'm talking about all these things as protection and things like that, from outside sources, but, making sure that you have those, everything in place that is protecting there for you. You have certain things turned on, being able to detect certain threats and things like that with this real-time monitoring and things like that. So, it's really, really important here to take advantage of this and really continuously monitor your security posture because it's ever changing. New threats are coming in, new types of, as you mentioned before, 6 to 12 months ago, we weren't, there wasn't token hijacking, for example. So things like that, people get creative. Bad actors get creative, so we want to make sure that we're keeping up to date. Everything is good to make sure that we are not going to lose out on important data, or especially when you're talking about cybersecurity insurance, you're not going to file a claim and it's going to be denied. So really, really important as we go through. So when we think about here, moving into now the user itself, that they're logged in, factors that we're protecting them against that are outside of their organization. We also need to protect the data within the organization, which in some ways is actually protecting ourselves in the way I want to go ahead and think about it. And that's where Microsoft Purview comes into play, because it offers a complete set of solutions to help your organization Manage, protect, and govern your data, no matter where it's stored. And these solutions can address, data fragmentation. It can improve visibility for you as well as clarify IT management roles. So with Purview, you can see your data across your organization, protect and manage sensitive data through its life cycle, govern your data in comprehensive ways, and manage critical data risks to meet regulatory requirements. So to prevent oversharing of sensitive information like financial data, PII, credit card numbers, health records, you name it, social security numbers, data loss prevention, which Donna just mentioned, and this is really the big part of Purview. Data loss prevention tools are essential. Information barriers are also important to restrict communication and collaboration between specific groups to avoid conflicts of interest or safeguard internal information. Microsoft Purview the information barriers work within Teams, SharePoint, as well as OneDrive. And that's what I was talking about before as far as thinking about your marketing department, your accounting department. We don't need to be sharing certain information between two different groups of people. So you can specify groups inside of Enter ID to make sure that, that there's no cross-contamination is the way I like to think about it here of that data itself. So what we want to do with data loss prevention and thinking about that is, securing data is so important, especially when we start to think about things like compliance. So we want to ensure that only authorized personnel have access to sensitive data is really one of the biggest keys as far as security is concerned. So then we want to go ahead and manage, wherever the data lives, making it easier for this compliance and fragmented data in a fragmented data landscape as far as wherever it lives. So data loss prevention as well as sensitivity labels provide additional safeguard measures to restrict access to sensitive information to ensure that data is encrypted, for example. So as well as our information barriers are restricting that further communication. So what we want to think about here as far as if you have data loss prevention policies in place, you're only specifying certain types of data can be stored in certain places, for example. It can also ensure that only certain types of people can actually save and actually create documents with certain types of information in them. For example, if you have if people want to go ahead and you might have a data loss prevention policy that prohibits credit card numbers being sent via Teams. Why would we need to go ahead and share that information there? That information is kept possibly in a separate SharePoint site that is secure, that only certain people have access to within our organization, so not anyone can go and find that credit card information. And as well as if we do have to go ahead and share certain documents like that, we have sensitivity labels in place, which will actually encrypt those documents. And also you can go ahead and everyone would be notified who's accessing this document that this document contains possibly PII, can possibly contains HIPAA compliance. That data has to be able to be shared and be utilized within an organization, but it needs to be done securely. So utilizing data loss prevention as well as sensitivity labels to make sure that only the right people have access to it and only can share it in certain places and can be only shared in certain ways. And when it is shared, it is encrypted to keep it even more safe. So that is protecting the data. It's protecting our organization. It's protecting our customers. But in a lot of ways, it's protecting ourselves against ourselves is the way I like to think about it. You may stumble on a document, if you don't have the correct DLP policies in place within your organization that has PII in it, and you don't know it has PII in it, and you might share it with someone else outside of your organization. Well, that right there is that's a data breach. That is a problem. So in a way, it does protect us against ourselves because if we don't know, and we can't help it. It can be honest mistakes. But if we know what it is, or we can't even access it if we're not supposed to see it or have it, that's even more important. And that's the way you protect your organization itself. So, and Donna, you mentioned this just briefly in the last question, but once again, I really want to stress here, and how you talk about your customers with data loss prevention policies. And just if you want to continue on, as just I did, I tried to really stress that importance of it, implementing those strategies, those policies and strategies, and actually how it's not actually that difficult to really do. There's a good baselines to start with, but talking to customers about, why that is so important. How you go about that and the things that, anything to add on to what I just said.
Yeah, so first of all, what we try to do is Microsoft does provide some templates for the
Hmm.
common sensitive data types, right? So if you think about it, PII, financial information, healthcare information, those are that's your big three. And most of the time when we start working with a client, we ask them, do they store any of that? And they said, well, we're not, we don't, and we're not supposed to. But when you start looking around for it, you find it. And so then they're like, wow, I didn't know that was in so and so's email, or I didn't know that person was doing that on SharePoint. So uh, identifying is the first, and knowing that you have the data. And then you kind of take the steps to, okay, what's next? So just like you said, Tyler, is you, you don't allow people to access data that they don't need to. So there's internal monitoring, internal blocking, there's external blocking. For example, in our organization, if we try to send something that looks like a social security number out through email or a credit card information or anything like that, it doesn't allow us to do that. We have a policy in place that it just won't allow it unless it's encrypted. So that email would have to be encrypted for it to get past that policy. So there's so many things that you can do, and so many things that people just don't think about, that Microsoft's done a pretty good job of saying, hey, this is what you need to do. So across, you have to think about DLP for email, DLP for the cloud storage, SharePoint and OneDrive, DLP for Teams. So protecting that data at rest and in transit is important. So you want to make sure that anything that's traveling outside of your organization is encrypted. Anything from those perspectives, that's PII or financial or banking information, healthcare information, and you want to make sure that that not only that, but that you use some sensitive labels on those to identify them. If you ever have a breach, you want to make sure you know where all that data is, so that you can make sure that that data wasn't actually accessed.
Yeah, it's so important, and and for those who possibly haven't implemented them here, and that's where I'm going to go ahead and kind of it's going to lead me into my poll question I have here, as far as do you have sensitivity labels in place to help protect your team against what we were just talking about there with data loss prevention. As Donna said, there are templates that are great, as far as as far as every organization, if you're dealing with certain types of information, should have implemented. But working with a partner that actually has the experience to cater these policies, because they're so malleable, you can kind of set them to excuse me, um, for example, specific Outlook domains, specific SharePoint sites, for example, specific policies for specific things. It's very granular as far as how that can be set up. Working with partners, and Donna's team there over at OnPar will help you get that set exactly the way you need it, because every organization is a little different and deals with different type of data and considers some different data maybe more sensitive than others. So these policies can be a little bit more restrictive than others, or some a little less. So you have a lot of control over how these policies are implemented within your organization. So I always like to point that out as well. It's not like it's not a one size fits all sort of thing. Or it is, it's not a one size fits all for these policies. They can be tweaked and tuned to be exactly what you need, and specify, specific types of information in specific places to specific users, or across entire organizations. It's easy to set that up as well. Right. So, you know, really just to kind of, as we wrap up here, we only have a couple more slides, but really want to just highlight here is that, Microsoft 365, it offers this comprehensive suite, as we've just mentioned, of tools to protect your organizations at every level. Thinking back to our journey of our users logging onto their machine itself, logging in with their identity to the tenant, being protected from outside sources, malware, viruses, phishing attacks, things like that. Being able to monitor the security of your organization as well, to make sure that you are, working towards and are working towards a great security structure within your organization, and then protecting your data as well within your organization, protecting it from, external users, making sure everyone has access to the things they need, and those who don't have access to it, encrypting data when needed, making sure that certain data is not being shared across different platforms and different services. So this comprehensive suite from managing our devices to, safeguarding our data, as I mentioned, it's, offering continuous threat protection. It's really here so you can, rest easy just knowing that your organization is protected from ongoing threats by things that you can set in place, and, that they'll be working in the background for you and you don't have to constantly monitor. But having that visibility into your organization's security posture is also super important, and also what all of these tools offer to you as well. So what I wanted to do here is go ahead and throw out, we've got two more poll questions. Thinking about all of those things that we just talked about, all of those different services, those different layers, those pillars that we mentioned, how soon does your organization really plan to initiate or enhance your M365 security strategy? Maybe you came across a few things that you're not implementing here, or a couple things that we just talked about made you think, oh, maybe we're not like doing that to exactly the way we should be, or things like that. So you may be looking now to try to build upon, your security and things like that. So really, really appreciate everybody answering the poll questions as well. That's really, really awesome. So what I want to do now is go ahead here, as Donna mentioned, for everyone who has attended, I should say, our presentation today, Donna as well as OnPar have a awesome offering for everybody here. So Donna, I want to go ahead and turn it over to you if you want to go ahead and tell everybody a little bit more about this M365 security assessment that you have for everybody today.
Sure. So we are offering for people that attended this and some of our existing clients a free Microsoft 365 security assessment for if you request the offering before the end of this month. And typically we charge around $1,000 for this. But what we do is we have a tool that we run against your Microsoft environment, and then our engineer will look at that and compare against your environment and do some analysis on the back end if you will give us access to that, or we can just look at the report. But if you're already a customer of ours and you give us, we typically have the access that we can review it. If you're not, then we can ask for temporary access to kind of look around at some of your policies and make recommendations to you. If you don't want to give us access, we can do a screen share. It's completely up to you. But and if you don't want to do either of those, we'll run the assessment and then schedule a time to go over it with you. And you do have to schedule a time for us to review the assessment and discuss how you should fix that. Whether you come back and do business with us or not, that's completely up to you. But the assessment does give you some very good information, and again, it'll make recommendations to you on what you can do to get that secure score up to an acceptable level.
All right. Well, that's great, Donna. And I'm going to go ahead and throw out a poll here as well. Easy way through if anyone is interested. You can go ahead and let us know in that poll. If you're not sure, you can go ahead and let us know if you want Donna and her team to follow up with you, possibly at a different time. Maybe just the time's not right. You know what I mean? So, we always want to be, courteous of that and understand that, we're here for you, and everybody at OnPar is here for you as far as, whenever you may need that assistance here for your M365 security needs, as well as just your Microsoft needs in general, I should really say, but specifically today we're focusing on security with this offer. All right. So what I wanted to do as well is take last few minutes here. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us. We're landing the plane just a little bit early, but if anyone has any questions or anything like that for myself or Donna, we would definitely, this is the time that we set aside here to go ahead and field those. You can let us know. You can come off mic. You can put a question in the chat. Whichever you would go ahead and want to do would be awesome. And I appreciate everybody filling out that poll. There's a lot of people interested in the security assessment, which is great. We'd love, love, love to see that.
I mean, it's free, right? And a little bit of time.
If it's free, it's me, so.
Right.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that being said, if you do have a question, you can hang on. But since we're finished up just like a couple minutes early, 5 minutes early, want to go ahead and give everybody a chance to have some time in their day back if they choose to do so. Like I said, we'll hang on if anyone has any questions. And it looked like Nick had set up here. So a question, which is awesome. If everything is set up properly and someone tries to send sensitive email through a document, does it tell the user? It does. So it'll actually let you know that the message was not sent because it has violated a DLP policy. And also with that being said as well, if the data, if and that's the policy itself, you would also want sensitivity labels in place that document is encrypted because certain users may be allowed to send certain information like that, depending on a department. You know what I mean? It could be information to a CEO, for example, who, there are, like I said, you can tailor this to exactly your business needs. But if you have a policy in place that will see the sensitive document there, it'll say, you have a policy, it's not sending documents that contain this type of information or encrypted documents via email, it will not allow you. And you'll actually get an email saying that that email cannot be sent due to whatever policy, whatever the policy's name is. Yeah, Nick, no problem. No problem. Right. And Jonathan, you are welcome. You are welcome. Donna, is there anything else you wanted to say before we go ahead and everyone makes their way with the rest of their Wednesday? I believe it's Wednesday. Yes, it's Wednesday.
And we appreciate everybody attending. We appreciate the attention and look forward to talking to all of you further to help you or assist you on your security with Microsoft.
All right. Well, if there are no more questions, everybody, we're going to go ahead and call it there. Like I said, give everybody a few minutes of their day back, but we really want to thank you for being here today. Thank you, Donna, so much for being here with us, and thanks to OnPar for putting on this event. Hope everyone was take a lot of information, took the information from this, and hopefully you learned something new, thought of your organization maybe in a different light that you haven't thought about it in before from a security perspective, which is always a healthy thing to do. You always want to be challenging yourself to think about, are we doing everything that we possibly can be doing? And, taking the steps there to go ahead and ensure that your organization and your users and your, customers, whatever it may be, are all safe and secure. So really want to thank everybody for hanging out with us today. We're going to go ahead and end things there and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.